So I work on the cell therapy team. I normally grab a cup of coffee because I need to be caffeinated. And then I sit on my computer and look at the different things that I have in my email or on my calendar that are high priority. And so once I know what experiments I need to do, I jump in the lab, work maybe 5 hours, 6 hours in the lab, really depending on the experiments. I normally don't post lab clips when I'm actually doing my job. So I tend to either go early into work or go in the evenings. Like my purpose is to help people out there and to bring out more of what biotech is and to help people get jobs. So yes, it's hard work, but like for me, it's okay.
In this episode of Engineering Pro, we speak to Marie from Lab Skills Academy, a social media channel that discusses how to uncover opportunities in the biotechnology sector. We chat about Marie's career in biotechnology, her early studies, her initial opportunities within the sector, and examine a typical day in the life of a biotechnical scientist. We also discuss Lab Skills Academy and Marie's efforts on social media to highlight the thrilling work in the industry and provide insights and guidance on how to break into the biotechnology sector. So, hi Marie, thank you very much for joining us on our podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this.
Yes, me too. I'm looking forward to some of the things that we're going to cover and just learning a bit more about your background and your skills and your experiences, really. But the first question, really, is what initially drew you to study biotechnology?
That's a good question. So I started my undergrad in biology. I was a pre-med student and I had high hopes of becoming a physician. And I feel like everyone has been through that path. And so through that, like during undergrad, I realized like pre-med or being a physician is not really for me just because of like my personality. And then I started like mapping out like 5-10 years from now what I really want to do. And being a doctor or still studying wasn't really something in my life. So I had to take a step back and like figure out what I want to do. But I still love biology and I still loved helping patients. And so I did a little bit of digging and then found biotechnology and all the pharma companies and biotech companies with all the science that they do. And I was like, okay, that's a great way for me to go into. And so that's how I found biotechnology.
Oh, fantastic. So it was a path you weren't expecting, but led that way anyway.
It's like it was a plan B, but it was a great plan B.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like it's working out. Can you talk us a little bit through your academic journey and any kind of specific courses that you thought, right, this is what I need to do, or anything that worked for you in terms of starting that journey?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's in biology. Um, that was, I don't know how long ago, maybe 7 years. No, I don't know, honestly. But basically, I the only class I remember from my undergrad is cell biology. Just like it was pretty basic. And then after that, I did my master's in molecular biotechnology here in Boston at Northeastern. And for me, the main course that stuck to me was how a biotech company was formed. And I thought it was so interesting. And one also thing that in that class we learned is like the different avenues you could do with a biotech degree. So you could work in the lab and then you could sort of work in the business side, you could work on the pharmacology side. So there are many different avenues that you can work on that I really learned that in school. But other than that, honestly, everything you learn is when you work because every company does things differently and they have different ideas and opinions. So you normally learn in the workforce rather than in school.
Okay, cool. Was there during that kind of while you were seeing how much there was available in terms of the industry and all of the different things you can do, did you have anyone in particular during those thinking about back to the courses, any kind of mentors or any particular experiences like open days or anything like that significantly influenced that decision?
Not really. I think the only person that really helped me out was my dad. Anything like I'm like I really don't know what to do. I would directly go to my dad. So I consider him my mentor, and for me to do the things that I do, I always consult him before I do anything. He's the one who told me about regenerative medicine. And he opened my eyes to that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something what I want to do. He opened my eyes to stem cells, so that sort of he helped me map out where I want to be or which biotech companies I want to work in because of all these ideas and all these papers that he shared with me that got me really interested and like ignited that biology fire in me.
No, that's really interesting. That's really nice as well. Did your father have a background in biotech?
Yeah, no, my dad is a naturopathic doctor, so he's like completely on the other side. But he just loves science and he loves like medicine and helping people. So I feel like both of us are aligned that way. So that's how he like we sort of we talk shop about biology and stuff.
I imagine that's the case when you're around together. It's one of the things that comes up quite a lot.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's fantastic. It's a really nice starting story, a really nice origin story.
Yeah.
Uh, so just thinking about, obviously you went through then and you graduated and you landed your first role. What was that kind of first? What did that first role look like?
Yeah, so at Northeastern, they have something called a co-op. So it's like an internship, but you're still a student. That's why it's called a co-op. And so it was a requirement for me to take before I graduate. And so I just like applied to so many companies that were offering these co-op positions. So many people said no. So many people, even though it was like and when you think of an internship is like an entry level position, so you literally don't need any experience. And I was very shocked for people to be like, oh yeah, but you don't have enough experience. But because it was a requirement, I had to keep on going and find someone who would say no, who would say yes to me. And I eventually found a company who just loved my vibe, loved my passion for science, and they're like, we could teach you what we need to teach you, you're hired. And so that's sort of how I got my first my foot into the door of biotech.
No, that's cool. You saying that it was a sort of cultural thing more than skills and stuff is a really interesting thing to think about. Did you find that the competition for positions was quite high? Was it quite a high demand?
I don't feel like the competition was super high. I just feel like people's expectations were higher, especially for internships. There were a lot of positions out there, and it really depends as like or as a person where you want to really work or what companies you want to work at. So the companies that I was working, what that I was seeking, they really needed cell culture work, and I barely had like a couple of cell culture skill sets under my arm, like under my sleeves. So they saw that as a disadvantage. And for me, I'm like, hey, like, but you could teach anyone how to do anything I can learn. So I feel like that personality speaks louder than just having the skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really so. You sought them out really and found the right match for yourself,
Yeah.
and hopefully that's gone really well.
Yeah.
And just thinking a bit more about the role then, and your kind of what you're doing at the moment, your day to day. We'll
Mhm.
come to Lab Skills Academy in a moment, but just your kind of typical day. What does that look like now?
Yeah, so I work in the lab. So I work on the cell therapy team. What I can share is when I go into work, I normally grab a cup of coffee because I need to be caffeinated, and then I sit on my computer and look at the different things that I have in my email or on my calendar that are high priority. If there's nothing that's super high priority, I go into the lab, check on my cells, make sure everything's alive. I look under the microscope, see like how things are growing, what are things like not growing, all that stuff, just to make sure like everything's healthy and alive and like on plan. And so once I see like how my cells grow, how they grow, I then realize like then I plan my day accordingly to that. Because if your cells aren't grown enough, you can't do anything. And so from there, I plan out my experiments, see like the things that based on what the company goals are, I start planning out my experiments, whether it's this week or next week or the week after that. And so once I know what experiments I need to do, I jump in the lab, work maybe 5 hours, 6 hours in the lab, really depending on the experiments, and just come home.
Oh, brilliant! Do you find just in terms of the balance, how much because I've spoken to a couple of biotech people in the past. Do you find you're spending more time in the lab, or is it kind of do you separate it quite a lot between live lab work and things like the data processing and all of the data, not necessarily data entry, but reporting and that side of it? How does it balance?
I feel like personally, I feel like 80% I'm in the lab and then 20% I'm either running around between lab and meetings or analyzing data. So I feel like most of my times are in the lab. I eat, sleep, drink. Well, you're not supposed to drink or eat in the lab, but like I'm always in the lab. So that's been my experience. But I know as you like grow in positions, your lab time decreases and you're more on the admin side and more on the data analysis side. But once you're starting out, you're in there in the lab pumping data, giving data out, making a name for yourself because that's what really is important at the start of your career.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Is that and I suppose my next ties in quite well to my next question. Actually, is that how you felt it's developed since you first started? How your role has kind of changed since you began? Did you start off in the lab and have kind of stayed there, or did it kind of change as you developed?
Yeah, it does change. I think responsibility wise in the lab, um, the more you grow, the more you own projects rather than just being, oh, yeah, I'll help you out, or I'm just helping people on projects. But instead, you'll have your own project where you're driving that force, you're driving that data, you're presenting in front of the whole company, you're showcasing like this is what you did from start to finish. So you are still in the lab, but sort of prioritizing or how much you get a say in things or experiments differs the more you grow and the more you grow within the lab.
Oh, fantastic.
Mhm.
And I imagine that's really helpful then in terms of as you grow and develop your, you're working within teams, you're having to use, it's not just the lab skills, it's the
Mhm.
communication skills,
Mhm.
team working skills, data analytics skills.
Exactly.
And in terms of those kind of, we look a lot at academic skills, which are obviously
Mhm.
important, but like you said, you can teach people that sort of stuff. So what have been those kind of soft skills that have really helped you in those areas of like say presenting and supporting teams?
Yeah, so there's a lot of presenting that comes with working in biotech. I feel like so many people don't know that because I get asked like, what do you present? Every other week, or if not every week, you present to like your small team, which is like, for example, for me it's a cell therapy team. You present the work you've been doing, the data you've been generating, sort of if you've been having troubles you present that as well. Sort of people will throw in ideas for you to sort of optimize your experiment. So that's one way you will get to present and also communicate and work as a team all together. And one other way also we present is maybe once a month or once a quarter, you end up presenting to the whole company, like the CEO, CSO, like every person and from different departments are watching you present the data that you're showing. And so that's like nerve wracking when you think about it. But time and time again, the more you do it, and then the more you understand the work that you're doing, the more confident you are. And one tip I always give myself is like, yeah, I could talk to anyone and have a conversation, but I always practice and practice and practice and practice, especially the technical words before I present to anyone.
Yeah, I imagine it feels a bit high pressure to begin with, but then I suppose everyone there they're all there for the same reason. They're all passionate about the projects and the experiments
Mhm.
and the organization as well, and they're all on your side as well. So I suppose it's very supportive as well. It doesn't quite feel like 12 people in a row staring you down.
Exactly. It is very supportive, but also you're in a room full of like people who are super, super, super smart. And like as an entry level person or like who's just starting out in your career, you're like, how am I presenting to you? And you probably know more than me, but like, hey, this is what I got. So that's sort of a little bit of intimidation that comes with like early on in your career, but like you just have to learn how to get over it and be like, hey, this is my data. I generated that. I own this, so this is my work. Like, hey, this is what I've been doing kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and I think that's a really good way of looking at it, and
Mhm.
looking at so owning your work and owning yourself within your role, and I
Mhm.
imagine that's quite a that's certainly a challenge that anyone would face coming into the
Yeah.
industry, and
Mhm.
just thinking a little bit about that, and the sort of the challenges. I suppose the other side, obviously, we've talked about how the excitement and the passion of it, but what are the kind of challenges that you might have seen and come across since you started this work?
I feel like us, like people in the STEM world, we're very, very, very harsh on ourselves because we're always surrounded by people who are either more accomplished than you or smart, or you think they're smarter than you, or they've been in like five more companies than you have been. And you always tend to compare yourself with others. And I feel like this is something we all, like me and my coworkers, my friends, we all deal with, is that comparison side of things. And it sort of makes you feel like you don't belong there. And so that's sort of a challenge I had to learn to get over early on, like in my career, because like the more you compare, the less you're going to work hard to achieve what you want to achieve, or to be in their position, because you're like, oh, I don't deserve to be here, so there's no point for me to work hard, or there's no point for me to learn even more. But actually understanding, like, hey, for them to get to where they are right now, they had to be in my position. They had to start from zero. They had to learn and ask questions and be present and do the work. And that's why they are where they are right now. So, sort of understanding that and knowing, like, hey, yes, I might be in a room and I don't understand one word they're saying, but that's part of growth, and that's part of growing in science, especially because there's so much out there. There's so many new technologies, so many new ideas. Like, the only way for you to know all of these is to be present in those meetings and to listen into those meetings. And then after you're done, you go back, sit on your computer, read a couple papers to fully understand. So the only way to learn and to get over that hurdle of like, oh, I don't belong here, is by being present and just getting your hands dirty.
So no, that's really interesting, and I think that's a really important take as well for our listeners as well, particularly people who are just starting out, is to have that
Mhm,
kind of confidence, and know that you can make mistakes in these kind of
mhm.
roles, and that it's a learning environment for everyone, even people who've been doing it 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
They'll say the same. They're learning every day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So thinking a little bit about that, obviously that's a bit of a potentially a misconception about the industry. Are there any
mhm.
other kind of major misconceptions that might stop people from even considering a role?
Yeah, I think one thing that I get asked a lot on my Instagram is, "Oh, I need a PhD or a higher education to be able to start in biotech." And I always say, "No, you don't need to. I don't have a PhD. I have a master's. I know most of my coworkers have bachelor's degrees as well." And as I was saying at the beginning, someone's going to say yes to you because of your passion and your willingness to learn. A degree is not going to hinder you from getting those opportunities. Yes, you might, instead of starting as a scientist, you might have to start as a research associate or a research associate too. Like, you might have to take a couple of steps back. But if you're looking to start now, and the only reason you're like, oh, the reason why I don't have a job is because I don't have a PhD, that's not true. There's always ways, and there's always ways and always positions you can look for, and someone's eventually going to say yes if they see your passion and if they see the willingness of you wanting to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say yourself, that's helped you.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people on other podcasts, and it has been exactly the same thing. It's the
Mhm.
passion, and like I say, developing those soft skills, the willingness to learn the extra hard skills, and saying yes to opportunities. That's the thing that drives your career forward. So yeah, talking a little bit about, obviously, mentioned there Instagram,
Mhm.
which is something else that I'd like to talk to you about today as well, because obviously that all ties in.
Mhm.
And giving advice, is that what kind of led to? Well, I'll swap these questions around a little bit. Actually, is that what led to Lab Skills Academy, or did Lab Skills Academy come first out of what you were doing with kind of advice, or was it just a side idea that you said, right, I want to do this?
Yeah, so with looking for jobs during that internship and getting so many no's, I was really frustrated because in school, yeah, they teach you like, oh, this is the right resume, these are the steps you need to take. But I felt like there was still a gap between academia and industry that no one really talks about. I always felt like there's something missing. And then when I entered the industry world, I was like, this is not what I imagined. This looks so completely different. And all the experiences and all the things that I'm doing is so different than what they teach you in school or what someone tries to communicate for you. And I'm like, if I felt like that, if I felt that way, I've at some point I felt helpless. I felt like I will never get a job. I felt like I needed a PhD. I felt like I didn't understand the world of biotech. I'm like, if I feel that way, there's probably one other person out there that feels that exact same way as I do. And so I was like, if I could be that person to communicate that to that one person, then I've done my job. And so that's how sort of Lab Skills Academy started, is because I wanted to translate that to the people who are struggling or who don't completely understand what the biotech industry is all about. And so I just started posting videos, and one video after another. I'm still doing it after 2 years, and it's been such a fun thing, like helping people, giving them a glimpse of what the biotech world looks like. I'm giving advice, starting a podcast, all these things have been such a blessing, and I'm so so happy that I started it, because like I get to help people get jobs in biotech. I get to help people fix their resumes and answer the questions that they've been looking for, and that's all I wanted to do from the start.
Okay, cool. Is it just yourself, or is there other people that work with you on it?
It's just myself.
All right, fantastic. One woman army,
Yeah.
brilliant. Um, so, what I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on that. I think before I go into the next question, it's something that we've not really included here, but I think it's a really interesting topic. How much of kind of how much does Lab Skills Academy now take of your time? Do you end up working most evenings and weekends? How do you tie it into your main role?
At first, it wasn't taking as much time as it does right now. I work in the mornings. I work in the evenings. For example, like if you look at my Instagram, there's a lot of lab clips. I normally don't post lab clips when I'm actually doing my job, so I tend to either go early into work or go in the evenings or go on weekends to be able to shoot these kind of contents, because yes, I shoot content, but I'm also shy if like a coworker walks in. And so I tend to try to be alone in the lab when I'm doing all these things. And I get a lot of questions about like, hey, are you always alone? But it's just me shooting content on my own. So it does take a big chunk of my time. Also thinking of content and editing and putting it together and like doing these stuff like podcasts and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like my purpose is to help people out there and to bring out more of what biotech is and to help people get jobs. So yes, it's hard work, but like for me, it's okay.
Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose a large part of that as well, which you would have with your main role anyway, is staying up to date on the latest trends and
Exactly.
technologies within the marketplace, within the industry.
Mhm.
How do you keep yourself updated and keep yourself up to date with that information that you're then passing on?
Yeah, so I sign up to so many newsletters, like anything that has to do with science, or like I just go on YouTube, on Google, and I'm like, okay, science newsletters, and I just subscribe to a bunch. Where every morning, like when I wake up, I get a bunch of like newsletters on my email, and I just read through them as I'm sipping on my coffee, and just read what's out there, and whatever's interesting or sticks out to me, I like go more in depth with, or if that's more relevant to my industry, because like biotech as a whole is like a big industry. You have like environmental, you have cell therapy, which I do. So there's so many different avenues. Everything's interesting, but I tend to focus more on like what my specialty is. So I tend to like look at newsletters that have that main idea more, and just read them while I drink my coffee.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then that kind of fuels the content as well as I
Mhm.
suppose
Yeah.
questions and comments from viewers and people who follow you.
Mhm.
They'll ask questions which will generate more content, I suppose.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I get a lot of comments, a lot of DMs, where from there I'm like, okay, so you're asking about this. Let me translate it into content form. Or you didn't know about this. Let me translate it into like a video or something for people to understand clearer.
Oh, fantastic!
Mhm.
So yeah, like you say, it continues to generate its own content. It keeps building and growing, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
In thinking about that, then you mentioned you were looking at a podcast and growing social media. What are the kind of next plans for Lab Skills Academy and yourself with that?
Yeah, so I just launched a podcast. It's called When in STEM. It's been up maybe for a month now, or maybe longer, I don't know. But basically, When in STEM is a play on When in Rome, where I'm trying to demystify the world of STEM. So basically, I bring STEM professionals from all over the STEM world to talk about different topics like the untraditional career path that you could take with a STEM degree, or how to network, how to overcome imposter syndrome, how to stay resilient during times of uncertainty. So I bring these stories out because there are so many people out there that have so like unique stories, because STEM is a not one size fits all kind of idea. So I just want to bring that content out and bring those stories out for people to understand, like, hey, if you started, let's say, on the chemistry side, that's not the end for you. If you're on the chemistry but you want to work in the business side, or you want to work in the biology, or you want to transfer to the clinical trials or whatever, you can do that. And people have done it, and I'm bringing these stories to you so you could see that, hey, you could do that as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And there's, as you've seen with social media, there's a huge appetite for that kind of content,
Mhm.
that sort of advice and tips. So no, that's fantastic. So that takes me in kind of nicely into what I want to talk about next, which is, you know, the kind of advice and stuff, the
Mhm.
kind of advice that you give to people who are looking to or considering a career in biotech. Just based on your experiences and what you've learned, what advice would you give to students or, you know, recent graduates who are considering a career in biotech?
I think if you're still in school, instead of taking summer classes, take internships, try to find internships, because the more exposure you have in the biotech world, the better it is for you to understand what you like and what you don't like. And the better you get that experience, you could add it to your CV, and it will give you a push to get a job. So always, always, always prioritize experience over a class. Maybe don't tell your parents that I'm saying that, but for me, what I've seen, like, people don't look at your degrees or where you graduated from. They look at the relevant experience you have to whatever you're applying to. So the more exposure you have, one, the more you'll understand where you fit in biotech, and two, you'll be able to get a job because you have that experience.
Brilliant. Yes, I think that's really good advice,
Mhm.
for all of our listeners, and obviously your audience as well. That's something that obviously comes up quite a lot, and that's all available with on your social media as well. And people can kind of reach out there if they have any kind of more additional questions. Thinking about that a bit more, then, obviously there's more opportunities in social media. There's your own career to consider. Where do you see yourself in the next kind of 5 to 10 years? What's the next kind of big steps in your plan?
That's a question I ask myself every single day. I honestly don't have an answer. There's a lot going on with like work and then social media. So right now I'm just going with the flow, seeing where all of this takes me. And I know it's going to take me somewhere great. I don't know when or where, but I'm just excited to see where I'll be.
No, that's brilliant. It's all good to plan and develop, but like you say, a lot of it is about, getting into that experience and seeing where it takes you more than mapping things out far in advance. So I think that's a really good way to think about it. So just another question, really, just thinking about your experience and thinking about the future for you.
Mhm.
What changes do you think are going to come within the, industry and within the biotechnology sector? How do you think biotechnology is going to shape the future a bit more broadly?
So now biotech is a little bit on the hot spot right now. With every industry is like a roller coaster. You have your highs, you have your lows. Now biotech is on the low side, but I do think in a couple of years it's going to go back to being its peak, its high. There are so many scientific research that's happening right now that I feel like are going to change the world, whether it's for the climate change, or whether it's for different cell therapies like autoimmune diseases. So many exciting things are going on right now. As long as you're like subscribed to science newsletters, you could stay up to date on what's going on. But I do know science is just gonna do its thing and be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think, just across the board, particularly since COVID and over the last few years,
Mhm,
there's so much more of a focus on it. The trajectory of science and the importance of biotechnology in many different fields. I feel like,
mhm,
it's really kind of shaping the future and focusing people's minds a lot as well. So, just thinking about that, where can people, if people want to learn a bit more about, Lab Skills Academy and what you do, where
mhm.
can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube under Lab Skills Academy.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Marie from Lab Skills Academy today for your time. I think there's some really valuable information there. I think it's been a really good chat, really good insight into the day-to-day of the career, and also, getting that right advice that can power a career. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so much fun just talking to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. This has been Engineering Pro with me, Matt Nicholson, and our guest Marie from Lab Skills Academy. We've gained insights into the biotechnology industry, the opportunities that are present, and how Marie is providing helpful news, advice and guidance on how to get into a career in biotechnology. You can follow her at Lab Skills Academy on Instagram. For more information on how NES Fircroft is also helping graduates into the industry by matching skilled candidates with top biotechnology companies, you can visit our website at nesfircroft.com, or follow us at NES Fircroft on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. You can also follow Engineering Pro on YouTube for more episodes like this one, where we talk to industry professionals about their careers and get cutting-edge advice, tips and insights into the sectors they work in. Thanks for tuning in.